Hello, I'm Dave and welcome to the City of the Future. In today's video I'm going to be taking a look at a piece of classic television technology, familiar to anyone who watched British TV in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s. It's the Micron TX503.
Elizabeth, the housewife from Ravenshead.
From The Price is Right with Leslie Crowther to The Price is Right with Bruce Forsyth.
The toolkit. The
Micron TX503 and its identical looking predecessor, the TX203, was always on hand for the star of the show. Used by kids TV presenters, youth TV presenters and global megastars. Originally available in a stainless steel finish, the microphone was later available in black. Radio mics offer freedom of movement without cables, perfect for running around the big breakfast house.
Dave! It's Dave, everyone! Hey! What's your name, Dave?
Dave Wild.
Okay, Dave, what's your question?
Now I consider this microphone to be a design classic, up there with the original iMac and Technics 1210. There's something very appealing about the stainless steel finish, angular lines and contrasting black mesh that I find very appealing. Now I picked this microphone up for £35 from a specialist television equipment auction site called TechBid, and when I went along to collect the microphone I found that the matching receiver rack hadn't sold, so I was able to pick that up for a further £35. And then at a later date I picked up these pocket transmitters that work on the same frequency for another £35. Now you might think that that's particularly cheap for such a well-made set of professional radio mics, and you'd be right. However, the fact that this operates on a fixed frequency that's not tunable like more modern radio mics has limited its appeal, because this particular frequency isn't suitable for use in many locations. This equipment was manufactured by an English company called Audio Engineering, the firm having been spun out from a hire company called Better Sound in 1965. They produced a range of radio mics under the Micron brand, and the name continues to this day with a company called Micron Wireless. Now I've done a bit of research, and these particular units were sold to Anglia TV for use in their Norwich studios in 1998.
Okay, so time for a bit of gentle restoration. The mic is in pretty good condition with only minor cosmetic issues and a damaged antenna. Let's start by opening up the battery compartment where there's space for a PP3 battery. The foam on the cover is in good shape, as is the rubber in the interior compartment. By removing two hex screws we can detach the mic head. This contains an omnidirectional condenser capsule made by AKG. The mesh is easily damaged if the mic is dropped, but this one hasn't suffered too badly. The paint is chipped and there's some dirt behind the mesh. Nothing that can't be solved with a stiff brush and a quick flick of the spray can to apply a fresh coat of matte black paint. And next, a thorough clean of the mic body using alcohol in the nooks and crannies. I then cleaned up the battery contacts with a fiberglass pencil. Now, Brasso isn't just good for cleaning brass, it also works well on other metals like stainless steel. The antenna is a helical coil of wire with some sleeving over the top, and it's split. So I've fitted some heat shrink tubing. As I don't own a heat gun, I shrunk the sleeving down with a soldering iron. With the antenna and capsule refitted, the TX503 is now looking in great shape. And an official Micron mic holder completes the look. The receiver rack contains the electronics used to pick up signals from 8 different microphones. It's had a bit of a bash at some point, and one of the plastic handles on module number 8 is damaged. This happens to be the receiver for the TX503. There's also a large patch of glue on the top panel and various sticky labels. Starting with a general clean-up, I gave the rack a thorough dust down. I've peeled off the labels and used white spirit to remove sticky residue. Gaffer tape is useful stuff but leaves a terrible mess if it's been stuck to anything for a length of time. The rack is made from an industry standard Euro rack enclosure with 8 plug-in receiver modules at the front. Here you can see the rack with 4 modules removed. I found the manufacturer's name inside the casing. This one's made by Schroff. I found some similar looking Schroff plastic handles and bought them from DigiKey. Fixing the new handle just required a screwdriver, but with the module back in the rack you can see there's a problem. The handle is too low and the depth is a few mil too shallow. Luckily I bought plenty of handles, so time for some modifications. First widening the holes, then making some spacers to increase the handle depth. And finally a bit of fine tuning with the Dremel. The end result isn't neat, but it's soon hidden by a new engraved plate which was made up by a local high street cobbler. And it's a pretty good match.
And with the receiver and microphone powered, lots of lights have come on, which is always a good sign, and the sound you're hearing now is from the TX503. So with it all seemingly working, time to take you on a tour of the microphone's features and those of the pocket transmitter and the receiver.
The TX503 houses the microphone capsule at the end. As we've seen, this is replaceable, and this one's fitted with an omnidirectional mic which picks up sound from all around. The mic body contains an FM radio transmitter, similar to standard FM radio broadcasts, with a few differences and refinements. This unit transmits on a frequency around 533 MHz as shown on this label. On the other side of the mic, this frequency is shown as 28H. In the UK, terrestrial TV channels take up a large chunk of the radio spectrum, and these are labelled as channels 21 to 69, although some channels are now used for mobile phones. Each channel may contain a single digital TV multiplex. Alternatively, the channels may be used for radio mics. And you can fit a number of radio mics into the space required by one TV multiplex. In this case, the manufacturer has defined 8 frequencies, A to H, which don't interfere with one another, so 8 mics can be used simultaneously in channel 28. Unless you're using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi radio mics, or those in channel 70, you'll need a license from Ofcom. This can be bought on their website. You can buy a license for channel 38, the dedicated mic channel. This is shared amongst other users, so you're not guaranteed interference-free use. For other channels, you can book exclusive access for a particular day in a particular location. For example, here I can see channel 28 is free in Milton Keynes on the selected date. The mic is turned on using the switch on the bottom. There's also a 3-position switch to select sensitivity, giving a level cut or boost in the loud and quiet positions. Inside the battery compartment there's a bass cut switch, and this is normally home to a 9-volt battery. And on the body of the mic there's a button that sends tone to the receiver to assist identification and lineup. An important feature of a professional radio mic is its noise reduction system. This Micron uses a system called CNS, complementary noise suppression. Audio signals have a wide dynamic range. That's to say there's a big difference between the loudest and quietest sounds. A radio channel, on the other hand, has by its nature a small dynamic range. So in order to carry high quality analogue audio over a radio link, a few tricks are required. This mic uses a compander. The dynamic range of the audio signal is compressed in the transmitter. This compressed signal is carried over the radio link. It's then expanded in the receiver. As well as allowing an improved dynamic range, this also reduces noise in the system. I can't show you the inside of the TX503 as I don't want to damage the label that covers the screw. So I've pulled apart a TX501 pocket transmitter, which I expect has similar circuitry. Here we can see 3 boards densely populated with discrete components and a number of ICs. On the middle board we find an SA572D. This is the compander IC. And a quick look at the features of that TX501 pocket transmitter. It's powered by a PP3 battery. On the top there's a connector for an antenna. And an interesting 8-pin LEMO connector for the microphone. The unit is turned on by inserting this connector. You can set the mic level by pushing the Set Level button. 2 indicators illuminate depending on the mic level. You should adjust the rotary controls so that you mostly avoid the 0 LED coming on.
And just a quick test to give you an idea of the audio quality from the TX501 pocket transmitter, and I've got plugged in this Sennheiser MKE2 Gold lapel microphone.
And now for a look around the receiver rack. It's fitted with 8 MDR540 receiver modules. Each is tuned to a different frequency. At the rear we find the power supply module, and there's the option to drive the unit from mains or a 12-volt supply. There are 2 antenna distribution modules. Each takes a single antenna and distributes the signal to each receiver. And XLR connectors for the audio outputs. These are diversity receivers, and it's worth taking a moment to explain what this means. Let's consider a radio mic in a studio. There's the wall, and a standard receiver with 1 antenna. The radio signal will travel from the mic to the receiver. Now, the antenna actually transmits all around, so there are other paths for the signal to take, some bouncing off the wall and taking a longer path. These signals generated by multiple paths are added up at the receiver. Some cancel out, and this can give rise to signal dropout. A diversity receiver has 2 antennae, each connected to a separate receiver. This time the direct and reflected signals follow a different path. It's unlikely that both receivers will encounter a dropout at the same time. So if we switch between receivers, we can avoid losing our audio signal. In fact, if both the signals are good, we can add them up, and this has the benefit of reducing noise. On the Micron diversity receiver, we can select the first receiver only, the second receiver only, or diversity mode to select the best signal, the B receiver in this case, as shown by the green LEDs. There are also switches to allow us to feed local headphone monitoring with either receiver or the diversity output. And as I walk around the workshop, you can see the signal coming and going, along with an indication of which receiver is active. With the module out of the rack, we can see the 2 coaxial plugs on the rear connector for the 2 antenna feeds. They connect to an RF module, shown here with the lid removed. Here our high frequency signal around 533 MHz is reduced to a much lower intermediate frequency around 10 MHz. The IF signals leave the shielded can. There are a number of modules to process the signal further, and of course the modules come in pairs, 1 for each antenna. There's a demodulator based around an NE604AD. This converts the FM signal to audio. The audio signal moves through the other modules, one includes a compander. There's some switching to provide the diversity output, and finally audio leaves the receiver on the rear connector.
And there we go, all in perfect working order after all these years, just in need of a little bit of TLC. Micron were well known for their reliability, and certainly the equipment was very well regarded. I posted a photograph of this kit on a Facebook forum, and here are some of the comments and recollections.
We used those handheld Microns a lot in the 80s, often on shows such as Get Fresh and Ghost Train. Beautifully made. I remember on Noel's house party we had many of them, spaced all around the studio. We had a couple at Anglia which we used almost daily until 2005 when the Trisha studio closed. Such reliable kit, Micron.
And of course Anglia TV was where this equipment spent its days, and it's found a good home now. It'll mainly be used as a display piece, a true design classic with fantastic retro appeal. And I'm not the only one to think so. The production designers on the original Mamma Mia film obviously thought so too, with 3 Micron handhelds used in the end credit sequence. And Micron are still in the business with their newer 700 and Explorer range well worth a look if you're in the market for some nice radio mics. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to see more of the same in future. Bye for now.
Just as I'd completed this video, a statue was unveiled in Bury, Lancashire of the comedienne Victoria Wood. Cast in bronze, complete with a Micron TX series handheld.